Brendan, Dad's not here today. No Derek.
I'm Derek PIAA, and welcome to Ion Sports. Does that sound
That was not awful, actually. For the first time.
Is that chair creaking?
For the first time, fake Derek PIAA, that was not bad.
Let's hear yours.
I'm so bad at
Just go
imitations.
for it. Do it.
I don't even. How do I do this?
You need
He has like a deeper voice.
Yeah.
but he has a Pittsburghese too. He's got that.
He's got a little
that
yinzer in
Pittsburgh
him.
dad going on.
I'm trying to see where I can dig this out of in my vocal range.
Do you need a sound example?
Yeah, actually, you know what? That wouldn't hurt.
Will and Beth and I went to the flea market this weekend. That didn't sound like him.
That got a little too deep.
What if we got like one of those AI voice
unrelated,
things?
and
like
went to
made
the
believe to
concert
be
on Saturday
him?
night that I told you I was going to. My brother bailed like a day beforehand.
I don't know if a single one of them is gonna look.
I'm not a tattoo guy.
Flat on the cement.
I'm not a tattoo guy.
There's people that get tattoos that, like Mike Tyson, all over his face. I don't understand that. But there's people that get tattoos of, like, the dates that their parents were born and died. There's
All right, that's your example. Go.
Will's baseball season started. No, that's not
that was
Southern.
Southern.
Oh my god! This is why I don't do this stuff.
This is a
You put me on the spot.
Now listen, since he's not here, you guys should work on it.
He like speaks from his cheeks. It's almost like he talks from his cheeks.
Welcome to Ion Sports, where we delve into the biggest Butler County sports topics. I'm your host, Butler Eagle Sports writer Derek PIAA. Joining me are fellow sports writer Brendan Howell and Eagle Sports editor Jake Murda Adams.
Man, you've done a lot of analysis in this. This is why you should do this.
I've spent more time with Derek over
Let's
the past
review
3
the
years.
video. Let's review the video. Or what would they say? Let's review the footage.
It's inarguable. I've spent more time with Derek over the past 3.5 years than I have anybody else.
I'm sure you have. Except
Just,
for maybe there's one other person you've spent more time with in the
Over
last
3
in the
years.
last year.
Rambo, and that's
well,
a dog.
in the last year, there's probably someone.
Still though, you spend 8 hours a day.
Don't fall for the
No.
trap.
You spend 8 hours a day
No,
with someone.
why did you give it up?
I-
Because
I-
I saw
that
you
was mean, Laura.
why was it mean for him to say Bailey? That's not
No.
mean.
There's no way that I've spent in the 8 months that I've known Bailey more time with Bailey than I have with Derek over the past 2.5 years. Every
Well.
day for 8 hours. Every single day.
Since I took this job, I've probably spent less time with Mallory than I have. Well,
This is
you guys
depressing.
collectively. This is what work from the office is.
Isn't that a weird thing to think of? Like that hit me, I would say, probably sometime last year where I was like, I see my coworkers more than I see my dad. like I don't know. It's depressing, but if you like who you work with, it's not that depressing.
No, it's not. And I've also not seen my
Aw.
parents. I see my parents less than most people around here because I don't live anywhere near them.
Yeah.
I'm going to see them like 3 or 4 times in a year. That's it. I see my in-laws way more than I see my own parents.
I mean, when I lived in California, I went a long time without seeing family because
Yeah.
nobody wanted to fly out there. And I was like, why don't you want to come to California in January? I'm like,
I
I'm
also
driving
didn't-
with my windows down. It's 72.
I also didn't want to fly back. That like when I lived in
Yeah.
Aston, didn't want to drive back. That was 15 hours. Didn't want to. It was 15 hours just to Pittsburgh, and then another 5 to 6 hours to Lehigh Valley, and flying back. You're picking one or the other. Both of our families don't live close enough where we can go in and make a thing out of it, or I can go in and see friends on top of it. If I'm making a trip back into PA, I'm seeing one group of people, unless everyone else drives over to meet there, which was just not gonna be the case.
Speaking of solitude,
Well, I have a question real quick. Sorry, because I know if he starts talking, he's gonna talk till we talk to our caller. We mentioned flying, and I know you guys, if you don't want to answer this, it's fine. I can cut it out. Do you think it's that they're showing all this crazy stuff happening in aviation because they're trying to scare us and that it just happens all the time and we're just not aware of it? Or is it, I'm already afraid to fly.
I've never been on a plane, so
You've never been on an
not
airplane?
one time.
I've jumped out of an airplane. But I just, 15,000 feet.
That's when I was in my early 20s, I would have thought about that more. The older I get, the more I'm like, I really don't know if I want to do that.
Here's the thing about that. This is what people assume. People assume that the parachute isn't going to open, and that's not the case in deaths.
Yeah.
That's very rare that the parachute doesn't open because there's always a reserve.
Still a chance.
There's always a reserve though. And I asked them this question when I went. I went Mesquite, north of Las Vegas, and we were wicked hungover too because we were there for my friend's birthday. I was like 28. And I asked this guy, what are the statistics behind people dying from skydiving? So I don't know if I really want to know the answer, but I'm just curious. I think I'm trying to keep talking before I get ready to jump out of this airplane. And he said to me, in a year, just globally, or I think he said the United States, it's like 7, and all of those were from the parachute was already open, but they were jumping in conditions they shouldn't have been jumping in. So then you have to fly the parachute.
Mm-hmm.
You're still really high off the ground once that parachute opens. It opens and you stop and everything's dead. And then you look down and you're like, oh, I thought I'd be a little bit closer than that. And I guess maybe that's scarier, but you're only free falling for like a minute, 20 seconds. It feels longer,
Really?
but you can see him kind of checking his gauge. But he said the majority of them are people who are inexperienced with flying the actual parachute, and they'll slam into buildings or they'll slam into the ground, or it's bad conditions where they shouldn't be. That's what he told me. But then again, this was in 2008. So a lot has probably changed since then.
Back when I did read Sports Illustrated, I read a story about someone who went parachuting and survived a crash on the ground because the chute didn't open properly. It opened, but it wasn't open properly, so it didn't slow the descent fast enough.
I read that story too.
That's
okay,
correct.
so you know where we're talking about.
That happens, yeah.
The instructor told the woman that was parachuting with him, just the passenger, the tourist doing this whole thing, to put her feet on his knees.
So he could flip over.
So he could flip on and have back on ground.
So he would hit the ground first.
And he died, and she was paralyzed.
Absolutely.
For the rest of her life.
Yes. And that is actually something that they're trained to do, that when you are in that tandem, which you are tandem unless you have so many. A friend of mine is actually a skydiver in Tennessee. She's wild. She has this helmet that has like a pink mohawk on it. It's really cool. And she does these videos all the time, and I'm like, you're wild. That's insane. But she was explaining that to me as well, that that's something they're trained to do, that the passenger, essentially the person that they're connected to, is the top priority, saving that person, and that they learn how to do that so their body hits the ground first.
Yeah.
And usually they can come untangled, but in that instance, if it's tangled where they can't release the chute and set the other one free, they're stuck.
Yeah.
If you can't untangle it and you can't actually release that chute to set the reserve out, then you're like...
Yeah. You're SOL.
I'd rather die than be paralyzed.
That's awful.
I don't know.
Was she a paraplegic or was she a quadriplegic? So was it from the neck down?
If it's neck down,
I remember
no way.
that story though too.
I don't remember what she was.
So that would be
entirely,
quadriplegic if it would be from the neck down. Which it's
to answer your question though from earlier. I think this is just like a cycle of a whole bunch of random things that happened, and because they kept happening in sequence, it became more and more of a story because it was a pattern.
Yeah.
But also John Oliver did a interesting story last fall about like the decline of Boeing. And
that's been a topic.
Yeah. And like they were the model of aviation safety for a long time. And then a board of directors for a much smaller aviation company that had a whole bunch of safety issues bought a whole bunch of stake into Boeing, and they took on a bunch of the spots on the board of directors, which made them being like safety first, highest quality possible company into more of a for-profit company, maximum profit company. And we've been seeing this since the late 80s or early 90s through now, where they've become more and more about cost cutting stuff. And the FAA doesn't require them to be to have safety inspections that are done completely unbiased and completely through FAA. Like a lot of this stuff can be circumvented, and so. But I also don't think like it's still one of the safest modes of transportation. And unfortunately, we have these like burps where a bunch of stuff happens all at once or pretty quick, where it makes it even more of an intense news cycle thing. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like with Mallory and I leaving in 2 months. We've talked to my parents.
I forgot.
It's okay.
Jeez, way to go, Laura.
With her and I talk like going in 2 months. We've talked with her parents in mind of like, hey, if something happens, we're both SOL is somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Here's what to do with what little inheritance everyone will get from us. Just that, and we're gonna try to have some basic version of a will set up by that point, but. We're trusting that our families are going to be civil enough after they get through the grieving process that they can divide and everything up as they need to. Thankfully, we don't have any debt that we need to worry about.
Let's just say that's
The-
gonna happen.
The funny.
I know what you mean.
Does
though.
Derek
It's-
bring the light to the show? We've talked about
No,
spending
I
time away
did.
from our family and dying.
I did
so.
bring a. I did bring a. Hold on, let me. I did bring up a pretty serious topic only because I have been wanting to travel. I want to travel again, and I just haven't since I went to Italy a couple years ago. And I have a fear of flying. I absolutely do.
It's
I
not my
understand.
favorite.
It's just not my favorite. I don't like. I don't think it's normal to be bouncing around in the sky. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's like when you're driving down the road and you hit potholes." I'm like, "Yeah, but also you're not. I don't know, 40,000 miles off the ground, going 530 to 600 miles per hour in a tube."
Yeah.
There's not that, and like this is fine, but they say this is not good. So if I'm in a plane and starts doing this, I'm like, "Oh, nah, this is not okay." And you've never been flying?
Oh.
Okay, well
I'm
we're
not
not.
excited for the first time that I do.
Well, yeah, we're not helping.
I've got
Sorry.
a
I feel like-
14-hour flight. That's what I've got. It's going to be an
That's
hour and a
gonna be
half
crazy.
to Jersey, and then from Jersey over the Arctic to Japan, and then the flight back
So
is
you're
Japan
gonna see
to
some
Chicago.
school stuff. School stuff. You're gonna see some school
yeah,
stuff.
I'm gonna.
What is wrong with me today? What is happening?
So
I've
you
been up
see
since
the- don't you
5:30.
see the
That might be it.
clouds when you're in the air.
We'll be flying over those.
The furthest south I'd been when I was 20 years old was West Virginia.
You've never been farther than West Virginia.
At 20 years old. Since then, I've gone to the beach a few times. But
Wait.
Okay.
Wow.
We gotta get you out.
Yeah, we gotta get you out.
give me some
there.
off time.
Yep. Hello.
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 This is exciting. Hi,
there?
Paul. Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Brendan, you got to introduce him.
We're waiting for your son to introduce you.
Am I supposed to?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, who's the guest today?
This is my dad. His name is Paul.
Wow.
We might need
Paul,
to do that
we're,
again.
we're sorry.
We're sorry, Paul.
Brendan,
I wasn't
Brendan's
aware
choking
that
under
I had
pressure.
to introduce him.
Well, I don't know. I thought maybe it was implied. But we're excited to have you on, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Are you connected to your car?
No, I'm actually at home still.
Oh. Well, we're without Derek today, and we've been talking about ranging topics from airplane crashes to
Skydiving.
how we spend more time around each other than we do our families. So it's a pretty
Well, that's the way work usually happens.
Yeah, it sure does.
No, I was telling them I've spent more time with Derek over the past 3.5 years than I have with any person because I'm
He
in
said
here every night with
you
him.
specifically.
Yeah, well, him, yeah, and
Yeah.
Tyler and everybody else.
Your dad's
Well,
probably like.
that's what happens when you grow up and get a job.
Your dad's probably like. I'm glad I see him less.
Yeah, he's like, if this is how he's going to introduce me, I'm glad I don't see him all the time.
I don't know. I was supposed to run down a list of like accomplishments in a resume or. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
We're talking to your
Yeah,
dad.
you're
What are
talking
we
to your
talking
dad.
to your dad about?
Yeah, what are we talking to him about? Does he listen to the podcast? You know, what sports go?
Have you caught up on all the podcasts recently?
I have not.
No. He usually listens to them at work in his AirPods.
He was at the first one. He was at our live show. I
Yeah.
remember meeting your dad there.
I thought about that. Feels like forever ago,
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but what do you want to talk about sports wise, Dad? What interests you today?
What is there to be interested about? I mean,
Have you watched any?
college football is over. Baseball is boring.
You haven't watched any Pirates games?
I'll go to a couple Pirates games. I'm not gonna watch them.
Yeah,
I can't sit down and watch baseball on TV. It's just not the same.
I haven't watched any games yet this year. I think they're 4 games in, right? They got
Yeah.
walked off 3 times. So
3 times.
Hunter, our coworker up there, I talk to him pretty regularly, and he texts me. He's like, "We've hit a low point 4 games in." I was like, I didn't expect anything this year. Like the off season should kind of tell you what's going to happen, and they didn't really do anything to improve the team. So
Well, the other night Bednar blew a lead.
yeah, and I'm not sure if it happened again. Like I said, I haven't watched any games.
I don't know if he's pitched. again
My
yet.
friends texting a group chat, and they're not too happy with him, and so I don't know. It's
Paul, of all the teams that you've watched, your favorite teams over the years, which is your favorite team? Baseball, football, whatever sport.
Football would have to be Steelers.
Okay. Which
For
I guess
NFL.
which Steelers team I should say.
Probably the first Super Bowl with Ben.
Ah, okay.
I grew up upstate New York during the Jim Kelly era, so anybody I could root against on the Bills back when I was a kid, I'd root against the Bills.
he has a Jets football that's like It's somewhere in my closet at home.
The
But
Jets football?
yeah, you used to cheer for the Jets, right?
When I was a kid, I used to follow the Jets. I cheered for the Jets.
Okay.
Now Justin Fields on them.
Baseball's always been the Yankees.
Yankees fan.
Oh yeah,
What
me
the
too,
heck?
Paul. I lived in New York. I was a bleacher creature
You're
at the old stadium.
You're a Yankees fan too?
What's wrong
Boo.
with being a Yankees fan?
Thank you,
Boo.
thank you,
I don't
thank you,
like the
Paul.
Yankees.
Thank you, Paul.
Did you see
Set
the
them
thing?
straight.
Did you see the thing, Dad, about how they like made new bats that look more like bowling pins? I guess they
Yeah,
like
the
moved the
torpedo
weight.
bats.
So they had, was it 8 home runs in one game the other day?
I don't know about one game, but I know they hit 18 in
Yeah.
the first series.
They hit 4 home runs in the first inning of one of the games. I saw that
Wow.
on Instagram. But they changed the shape of the bat, Dad, so that when they swing it, if it makes contact with the right part, it basically goes as far as it can. So
it's
they're
centering the
revolutionizing
center
baseball.
graphics.
Is the material different
No.
that it's
no,
made
it's just
from?
they like redistribute the weight of the bat to be more on near the tip. I didn't mean to do that. More like towards the tip that you're not swinging with. But I don't think it's a bad thing if you're gonna bring offense back to baseball. Like pitchers can throw 100 miles an hour now, so if you have a bat to kind
So
of
it's still top heavy. It's
more top heavy.
I'll show you a
it's
video
heavier.
or photo
Okay.
in a little
Yeah,
bit.
they look weird. They
Okay.
look like bowling pins, like big bowling pins.
So, yeah, you were asking your dad for his opinion on that?
Yeah.
so. What do you think about what's
I
going on
think,
right now?
I
With the,
mean, I'm not against technology and making things better in baseball, but instead of making bats easier for people to hit home runs, what about talent? What about going back to the day where it was an accomplishment to hit so many home runs in a year? I mean,
yes, I agree.
and I think when it comes to major sports, major league sports, the players are making way too much money for the amount of stuff that they do. I mean, even back when we were younger, if you like my home high school, the Bills would come and do a charity basketball game with people against faculty, and you don't see major league players doing that kind of stuff for communities anymore.
Yeah.
And the price to go to a game, or I mean, baseball it used to be America's pastime, and now you got to take a small loan out to go to a game.
Yeah, unless you have connections like we do. So
What connections?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what connections?
Tyler's old boss, the Pirates. Well,
I used to be able to get to a Temple basketball game every now and then, but
Yeah,
the guy that I know is retired now.
Wait, Tyler,
yeah. He interned for the Pirates.
you know him?
My brother.
Your brother is the intern for the Pirates?
He was.
Well, he interned for the Pirates a couple years ago, and I went to more Pirate games that year when he interned than I could. I would never pay to go to that many.
He got free comp tickets for every game.
Okay.
So he can get
Oh,
them
nice.
out whenever.
So does he still have a connection?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got tickets.
I'm gonna
for me and
sigh
Brendan to go.
very
we
loudly.
We went and seen. Who did we go see last year? Brendan, wasn't the Yankees?
We went to see the Rays and the Pirates because it was 95 degrees that day. We went to Southern Tier Brewery or Brewing or whatever on the North Shore, and they sat us on the
Now
patio.
We got to see the other pitcher start.
Oh yeah, Jared Jones.
Yeah, those really hot ones are not fun.
That's why Bailey doesn't want to go to the game because she doesn't want to sit in the hot and sweat.
Last year,
Yeah.
Mallory and I went on 4th of July. I think I took like a half day on that or something, and she did not put sunscreen on her legs. And I was
Oh,
like, "You
no.
need to do this." She's like, "No, we're gonna be fine. The shadows are gonna come down, over the bleachers at one point." I was like, "No, you need to put sunscreen on." And by the 4th inning, it was pink. By the 7th inning, when we left the game, it was red. For the next 5 days, she was putting aloe on it nonstop, and she was basically in tears at one point. She's like, "I cannot move." Like,
So-
and you're like, told you so.
We have 2 big games. Like he mentioned the cost of tickets. I do a lot of side work, and I don't spend any of the money I make on the side. Not this year, actually. And I have 2 things I want to go to this year, which is Ohio State, Penn State. It's at Columbus Stadium, I think in October.
Okay.
And then Ohio State, Michigan, which is like a bucket list item for me. Like I think it'd be amazing to go to one of those games. It's gonna be super expensive, but I plan on buying my dad and I tickets, and maybe Tyler and Bailey, whoever wants to come. We'll see.
Spoiler alert, Dad.
So he knows already. So yeah, those are my 2 big things that I want to get to.
Okay.
Your dad an Ohio State fan?
Yeah.
I am.
How did the Ohio State fandom come about in your family?
Me.
Well, I used to really like Penn State until all this stuff with Paterno came down, and when they tried to erase his name from the school,
Yeah.
and it just, and the way everything was handled with Penn State, I didn't like it. And Brendan started following Ohio State, and I just
Tagged
kind of got
along.
sucked into it.
Yeah. I have to defend to my friends, like Alex, my roommate, went to Penn State. I told you he was in a frat there. He's very elitist about you can't be a fan of a school unless you went there or someone in your family went there or you're close to there. So
What?
yeah.
I disagree.
And my argument there is Columbus is 30 minutes further from Butler than state colleges. Like it's not. It's almost like an equal drive. So, I think they're just mad because they got to deal with us beating them every year and freaking out about it afterwards. So
he doesn't want more fans? That doesn't make any sense.
yeah, like he thinks that you should have to go to school to be a fan of them. And I was like, I wanted to go to Ohio State out of high school, but out of state tuition would have been too much.
Yeah.
And it didn't really make sense. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll get like some
Well, yeah. When
adjacent degree just so I can say I went there.
Get your master's.
that
from
determined what school I went
Buckeyes.
to. I was going to go to Duquesne, and I didn't go to Duquesne because of the cost.
Mhm.
And I was able to get. It doesn't matter what it doesn't. This isn't about me, but I was able to get scholarship for the second, third, and fourth year. But I would have had to go the first full year, and it just wasn't.
Duquesne and Clarion are two very different locales.
They are,
One's in the middle of the city and one is like right outside. Just
and that wasn't the determination for me either. I would have gone there. In
you
a
wanted to go to
heartbeat.
school with Derek, is what it was.
Oh, because I knew Derek. I knew Derek then. I think Derek was a senior when I was still a senior in high school. I don't remember if we had crossover or not.
So
Are
before
you
we
calling Derek old while he's not there?
yes.
Well, yeah, he's calling me old
he's
too.
he's 5 years
calling me
younger than you.
He's not here today to defend himself. The kids are running the show.
We went to the same college together, so
Yeah.
He's calling me old too, Paul. So there you go. It's your son. He's a fun guy to have around.
So
I gotta say,
me,
yeah,
good.
you keep it fresh. You keep us on our toes.
So I told my dad the day that Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers were rumored to be interested in each other in free agency. We're still waiting. It's 3 weeks later now.
Mhm.
What do you think, Dad, that they're still waiting on him? And do you think that they should just move on and do something else?
Well, I think they messed up when they didn't re-sign Fields anyway.
There you go.
And Aaron Rodgers is he's not the answer. Why do we want to go into geriatrics to get a quarterback?
Oh, now who's calling who old? Wow.
Aaron Rodgers is in his mid 40s
41?
too.
I know he is. He's around my age.
Aaron Rodgers, it was Super Bowl 45. I remember watching it with my dad. He made me cry after that game. When I was away for a day, I think it was when I came to watch the Ohio State National Championship game with you, they talked for 40 minutes about Napoleon Dynamite.
Great movie.
And I remember you putting that movie on Comedy Central, whatever it was.
So
and
good.
I thought that movie was the dumbest thing I've ever watched.
Uncle Rico, he's
Stupidest movie ever made.
well. Now we got two against two on today's episode. Napoleon Dynamite. Don't you think it's funny though? Uncle Rico's character, how he's like, man, if I could just go back in time, we would have won states.
Throw it to the video
Don't you think
camera.
that's funny? He's just randomly he's throwing the football into like nowhere to no one,
Great movie.
blasting it.
Love it.
Hey, I don't think I've ever actually sat down and watched that whole movie through in one time.
Missing out.
Yeah, you're missing out, man.
They get on me for not
I'm not.
they get on me for not liking older movies. Like I told them that I named Rambo after a rap song and not the actual Rambo movies.
Yeah,
and
that's not
That
okay.
checks out though with you.
Well, it does actually check out with you. It's on brand. So
Thank you for joining us, Paul, today, especially
Thanks, Paul.
last minute.
Yeah, no problem.
thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, bye.
We've got, as we've been talking about for the last few weeks, Brendan, we're in the middle of spring season now. It's Monday, March 31st. A bunch of games have just been rained out again today. We're probably going to have a bunch more the rest of this week if the forecast holds. But we're coming out with our baseball and softball and last of our spring previews here. you had the baseball previews drop today on Monday. It's in the Butler Eagle and at butlereagle.com. And we have softball coming out later this week. It should drop before this episode airs. So, Brendan, let's start. What can you tell us about some of the storylines to watch this season in either of those sports? Your stories were about the top players to watch, but are there any storylines we should be paying attention to on top of that?
So in terms of storylines / players, I think that on the baseball side, we have tons of pitching talent. It seemed every coach I talked to, you go down the list here in this story, Nolan Stefaniak is the first one that stands out. He's going to Penn State. He's just a junior. His teammate, Kyle Castillo, he also plays basketball for Butler. Josh Forbes, their baseball coach, thinks that he is not long until he has some interest from colleges and that he'll have his own options. Luke Goodworth, he was a quarterback for Mars, as we've talked about a lot, but he's not playing pitcher, probably because of his shoulder injury, and I'm not sure he's done that before, but he's a strong shortstop for them. And you go down the list, Jacob Jones, two-way player for Current City, Kyle Kraus from Mars. He moved back into the school district from Georgia, and he's committed to play at Virginia. So it's not every day that you have Division I commit transfer back into your high school, which is probably a pretty big help for Mars. He's our other Division I commit. Adam Manuel, Current City, two-way player. Isaac McCandless, Slippery Rock, two-way player.
So many pitchers.
Yeah, exactly. And Zane Pasek, 7-foot pitcher. You don't see a lot of those.
That's crazy.
He is probably gaining interest in basketball and baseball just because of that height, not to mention his talent. Ryan Pikatowski from Seneca Valley. He is also going to play in college. Austin Runtis, and as I said, Stefaniak. There's just a ton of pitchers that I'm excited to get out and watch. There's usually a stretch in the spring where I lock in on baseball and I just enjoy being out with the ambience of everything. So that's exciting. On the softball side, in terms of storylines, Seneca Valley has Lexie Hames, who I have covered since she was a freshman. She's a senior now, Clemson commit, and with her, they are always in the mix. It seems she's always allowing 1 hit, 2 hits. She's had a few no-hitters. I actually went up to her after a game last year. She threw a no-hitter. I talked to her. I said, and it was just normal to her. Like she was just happy that they won. And I remember I was expecting her to celebrate in the circle. She picked up her rosin bag and walked off the mound. No, like stoic expression. It's normal for her. So with her, the Raiders are always in it. Butler, our other 6A softball team, they have been down in the past years. They've been trying to build up that program, and finally it seems like they're about to break through, especially with the coaches that they have. They have a few coaches that have had success both at the collegiate and high school level, so they should be a team to watch too.
The Seneca Valley softball won Whitfield last year. I think they made state quarterfinals, if I'm correct. So, it's tough for me to ask you this question, but because we've only had a few games, really haven't dived deep into section play for most of these teams, and some of them still haven't started yet. Plus, it's just the way the spring season now is, with it starting 2 weeks early.
It should be starting right now in
it
other years.
Really should. But what do you think, from what you have been able to gather so far about Seneca Valley, what do you think about their odds of repeating as Whitfield champ and making the same or deeper run in states?
Well, it's not just her that they have back. They have other people back from their lineup last year, but the thing that's interesting about softball that I always kind of have to wrap my head around in terms of difference from baseball is you can trot a pitcher out like once every few days. And their arm, because it's not going overhand, it's not as affected as going underhand. And the pitches that they do with the rise ball and stuff like that. So they can trot Lexie out basically almost all of their games, and there's not as much wear and tear on her body from pitching in the circle. So like I said, if she's in there and she's healthy, I know she had a few complications last year with injuries, and they still won the Whitfield Championship, like you said. If she's in there, they have a chance to repeat and go far again.
You mentioned Butler and Seneca Valley softball being probably two of our better teams this year. What about on the baseball side? Who do you think are one or two best teams? I think Carn City made a state playoff appearance last year. So are they going to make it back? Are they going to win districts, or is there someone else we should be watching?
So the one coach that I didn't get in touch with was Monotow's coach. They made the state quarterfinals last year and lost to I think it was something Mountain. I went to cover that game in DuBois. So I don't really know what they have back. I know they had a kid that went to Slippery Rock. They do have a young pitcher back that was a sophomore that I'm forgetting his name. So I'd watch out for them. I want to see what they do. Probably get to talk to them a few times whenever possible. Butler and Seneca Valley are always teams on the 6A level. That's especially the 6A level. The fewer schools, they're always in the mix to make playoffs. And once you make playoffs in baseball, if you can get a few good pitching outings from your starting pitcher or your bats get hot, there's really no telling how far you can go.
In your short amount of time here, do you remember there being this many Division I recruits at the baseball level?
I don't think so. No, that's why the fact that there were 2 of them really stuck out to me, especially because I hadn't really heard of Stefaniak. I know he played for Butler last year, and obviously I didn't know about this Kyle Kraus kid because he wasn't here. So not only is it 2 Division I commits, but it's 2 Division I commits that seem to have come out of nowhere.
And Virginia's not a bad school. I mean, no shot at Penn State here, but Penn State's not known for being a baseball power. But Virginia's made some runs before in the World Series tournaments and stuff like that, in the ACC. Yeah, ACC tournaments. I'll touch on volleyball real quick here too, as I'm wrapping up those previews as well. Mars made the state quarterfinals for the first time last year. They've got PIAA back again, outside hitter, so that should be. I don't know exactly how good they're going to be with some of the pieces that they lost a year ago or since last year, but that's still a team that should be fairly dangerous. One thing that was interesting as I was doing the research is the Pennsylvania Volleyball Coaches Association ranks Mars and North Catholic in top 10 in 2A in the state. So I think what I saw, and this was as of March 25th, so rankings could come out again later this week before this podcast drops. The Mars was ranked number 6, I believe, and North Catholic was number 8. WesternPA Coaches Association, I saw on Trib Live earlier today that all 4 of our teams, our main teams, are ranked in Western Pennsylvania. Butler, Seneca Valley in 3A, and Mars and North Catholic in 2A. Summit Academy being the 5th team that we have, and they weren't ranked. So we should have some pretty good volleyball this year, and it'll be good to get out to some of those gyms. They don't have to deal with the weather.
Yeah. Sometimes those gyms, though, when it gets to be late May, mid-May, it's like you walk in and it's just crazy hot in there. So the doors are open. It's always a nice time of year though when the sun starts coming out, so I can't complain. Just for the next few weeks, it's gonna be rough for us. But lacrosse, they played through everything. They played through rain the other night, and that was really cool. I've seen them play in snow, which anything in snow, any sport in snow is magical. So.
I got a chance to go out into Pittsburgh on Saturday, which was like 70 degrees, and the rain held off for the most part, which was really nice. We went down to, I ate at Woolies for the first time. I've been in Woolies before.
I've heard of that
and
place.
Got some stuff, but I have never eaten there, so I got a po' boy. That was pretty good. Walked around the Strip District a little bit. We've been there a bunch of times, and then we went up to Southside, I believe it was, and went to some like Asian markets and anime stores and stuff like that. Even though it was my birthday that we were going out for, Mallory made sure that she got some of her anime stuff in, of course. So we also have with spring, we talked about the high school side of things. We've got the pro side of things right now. Pirates are back. We just talked about them a little bit ago. They went 1-3 in their series against the Marlins, the frickin' Marlins. For the first time, I read this stat yesterday. The Marlins became the first team since the 1908 Detroit Tigers to win 3 games in the opening series by walk-off. So that, like, Pirates should be upset. Pirates fans should be upset about the way the season starts, but that's also, like, a lot of dumb
Did
luck.
you see that the last team to lose 3 games of their, whatever you just said, and I don't know how you term that, the last team to lose those games was the Pirates. So it's only something that happens to the Pirates.
I did not see that.
they're already getting laughed at a few games in the season, which is disappointing. Baseball, though, I was talking to Hunter about this too. There's this meme on TikTok, or this like video on TikTok of this guy when his baseball team loses, like freaking out. He's all mad. He's like, "You're throwing terrible pitches, blah blah blah." He's just crashing out, and then. Same about football. They're like, "Oh, we lost this week. It's okay. We'll get them next week." But it's so funny because the amount of games is so disparate in football with being 17 in a season to baseball 162. The Pirates could go on like they did. They started, I think, 20-8 2 seasons ago. And I said at that point, I was like, I'm not buying in. You know what they did? They missed playoffs. So, that's crazy that it's just 4 games in and it's already somewhat of a joke.
We've got 2 guys. I'm not missing any, right? We've got 2 guys in the pro level right now. We've got Bednar, obviously, with the Pirates, which obviously as a Pirates fan perspective, that it sucks that he blew that game a couple nights ago. And he had a lot of struggles last year, but this is a Mars guy. He's local here, so there's a lot of people pulling for him in that regard. And then we've got another Mars grad, JJ Weatherholt, who was pushed to the 2A level with the Cardinals this year to start out of spring, and he was drafted just last year out of West Virginia. So already he's 2A. He could be called up next year, it seems like. I mean, I think Cardinals have a decent infield right now, so there's no need to rush him through the pipeline. But there's a guy there that by this time next year we could be talking about 2 pros that we're covering or that we're dealing with from our coverage area. So what should expectations be for those Butler County fans of these 2 players, these 2 teams, these communities? What should their expectations be for Bednar and for Weatherholt this season?
I don't think that one game should be indicative of Bednar's season going forward. You can trip up early. The Pirates as a team have. You mentioned it sucks that happened, but he could rebound, and that's I wanted to get out to talk to him, and I probably still will, about what last season was like for him. You go from he made the All-Star game, I think it was 2022.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
So he made the All-Star game, and then he kind of has his drop-off. I wanted to kind of dive in and see what that's like just from a professional athlete standpoint. I could imagine if I wrote one of the best stories ever and then got all these awards, and then suddenly my writing just falls off a cliff.
And it's such a fickle position. It's like kicker. You are judged more on the misses than on your saves and holds or on your made field goals because you get so few opportunities throughout the year. Some of it can just be bad luck that snowballs for an entire year, and the next year you bounce back. So I remember reading some stuff earlier in the preseason that he had been tinkering with some stuff, and he had been trying to fix some of the, I think it was the mental side of things too. He last year got to him a good bit. So it'll be curious to see if not a good start. That never helps the confidence, especially after a bad year. But is there a little bit more fortitude there, a little bit more guts to kind of bury that game and bounce back and play better, pitch better the next couple weeks and just build some momentum.
Yeah, and I think Holderman came in earlier than he did in that game, and he did his part in blowing the lead.
Yeah.
So I think Bednar was put in the first game. I could be wrong. I wasn't paying attention because we were at work.
Yeah.
I think he was put in extras, right? And then with the runner already being on second, that puts the pitcher in a precarious position as it is already. I hate playing MLB The Show when you get to extras and there's a runner on second base and extra innings. It's I am weird with baseball. I like pitchers duels and I like marathon games. Those
are the two opposite things.
A pitcher's duel. It can go 1-1 into the ninth inning, and then from there on, it's kind of on the team and the bullpen to figure out. I think that just that is interesting, that whole situation where it's the manager has to figure out how to use his team while also considering the next day and the rest of the week, and you can't use too many pitchers. And then with MLB The Show, I would put in a starting pitcher, have him go as far as possible, and as soon as I got into extras, I'd throw in another starting pitcher and say, you're going to go 5 innings, and if we win, we win. If we lose, it's on you.
If this is real world, you would be fired so fast. Horrible game management.
With Weatherholt, everyone has to wait their turns in the minors. Even Bryce Harper, remember when he came up as a crazy generational prospect that hit a ball, I think it said, what did it say on that Sports Illustrated, 500-something feet, 400-something feet?
Yeah.
I believe it. Bryce Harper's a good-looking Ohio State fan, and he has my support no matter if he's in Philadelphia or what. He's my favorite baseball player, actually. I liked Soto, but I can't believe my dad's a Yankees fan. I figured he likes the Yankees, and he used to play with the Yankees on the show with my younger brother. But my younger cousin is a Yankees fan, and he reposts every Yankees win on his story. It's I've had enough of seeing this. What a surprise. And again, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I can't complain too much because they won this year, paying the roster $20 million. Yes, Weatherholt will have to wait his turn, just like everybody else does. But it'll be interesting to see when he does make the majors and be able to cover that.
Getting promoted to AA less than a year after getting drafted, that's a good sign. I don't know. I think he's still lower tier of the top 100 MLB prospect rankings, but that's a good.
Was he at Marsh for 4 years or West Virginia for 4 years? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So he's not a younger prospect.
No,
he's coming
22,
in like
23.
he should expect to get to the majors a little quicker because of his age. And
Yeah.
want him getting there when he's 27.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. Like I said, probably next year I would guess. I don't think there's too much of a sign to rush him right now, but we'll be talking about him sooner than later.
Oh. So this may be easy. No one. Should I go? You want easy or medium?
You're the captain of this ship, dude. I have no say over
But
this.
explain what's happening today, since
Derek is not here. He cannot answer my trivia question. So Jake is here.
getting worse.
And I'm gonna ask him a Philadelphia Eagles trivia question about my favorite thing, the NFL draft. The Eagles have drafted 2 Hall of Famers in the supplemental draft. Both went on to play for other teams. Who are those players?
Supplemental draft.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're asking me even more out of my wheelhouse. Yeah, well, it's not going to make a darn bit of difference anyway. I'm trying to. Supplemental draft's been dead for like 7 years, and
Terrell Pryor was part of it.
Terrell Pryor was part of it. I remember the Eagles being loosely connected to him. When he's like the only one I can name of anyone that was drafted supplemental draft. This has to be like from the 70s.
It was 80s. I'll give you that.
80s. I still don't know.
take some time.
It's not going to matter. I have no idea what the answer to this question. I'm 0-1. I'm just going to take the L.
Do you want the answer?
Yeah.
Chris Carter, 1987. Reggie White, 1984. God. Reggie White would have been like the USFL like comeback from that. And Chris Carter, I don't know if he had problems or what at Ohio State, but regarded as the best Ohio State receiver ever. So
I forgot that they had a connection to Carter. I really did. CeCe.
Welcome to Beyond Butler, our weekly topic where we talk about something outside of Butler County sports, whether that be professionally or collegiately or today electronically. Backyard baseball, which I'm not sure you played as a kid,
did. Are you kidding?
is out on iOS for $5. I have not bought it yet, but I do plan on buying that game. So what do you think of that coming back? I think it's pretty cool. Like you can play it on your phone, play it on the go. You're going to be in Japan. You get bored there. You can pull it out.
I'm going to need to download a Mallory's phone because I don't have iOS.
I think you can get on Google Play too.
Is it on Google?
Yeah.
If it's on Android, I can play it. I might actually play that. I might.
Android.
I'm better phone. I can put widgets on my home screen so that way I can actually look at like a full calendar and instead of having to click on an app, I can set up a weather app widget on the top of my screen so I can see the forecast.
You have green bubbles.
I like my green bubbles. Matches my color scheme.
I don't have to click on an app. What are you talking about?
I can set up my entire calendar, my Google Calendar, into one pane of my home screen. So the whole month of April or March or February shows up. So
you
I
can
can
just
see
stare at it and get even more and more stressed out.
It's very handy for me. I have a widget that's set up with the AccuWeather forecast for the day that I can look
have
at
that
without
too.
having to click into the.
That sounded like an ad for Android. I wonder if Android has. Wonder if Android has affiliate opportunities. It would just
Sign
be
me
for
up.
you.
Sign me up. I'm for sale when it comes to
What
Android.
memories do you have playing the backyard sports?
I used to play that game all the time. Now, like I never actually challenged myself because I was an 8-year-old and 8-year-olds don't know how to challenge themselves and making it interesting. But I would pick all the best players all the time and just make a run. I never played it when it became like MLB sanctioned, and I never played any of the other backyard sports games. It was just the original backyard baseball, and I loved that game. I would play it for hours. It was so much fun. So this might actually get me to download another game on my phone because I try to not play too many games on my phone.
One of my first introductions of football was backyard football, and that was when it was NFL sanctioned, and Steve Young was in it, Jerry Rice was in it. I'm sure there were a few others, Dan Marino, all those players. So I liked when it was sanctioned. I thought it was really cool. I also didn't know how to challenge myself until a certain period of time. But now I like when video games make me mad. So
I'm looking at the roster right now, and they don't have the stats here, but I think I have a rough memory of who the players were that I would always pick in that like backyard draft that you had at the start of the game. It was Pete Wheeler because that dude could fly. I think I had Ernie Steele all the time, Keisha Phillips. Who else was there? Ahmed Khan, because I remember the headphones. Pablo Sanchez. You had to have Pablo Sanchez because that dude could pitch. Kenny, you always had Kenny because he could throw some mean stuff. Who else did I have? Stephanie Morgan. Stephanie Morgan was also on my team. That game was great because it was so inclusive at a time when games were not inclusive. Like, you have a kid that can pitch that's in a wheelchair in Kenny. You have, girls on this team. You have boys on this team. They're all different ethnicities. It was an awesome game. I love that game. It's so fun.
I just looked up Backyard Football 1999 on Google Images, and there is a Ricky Johnson football card, and it is $2,499.
No, thank you.
It's PSA graded. That's insane. But
no,
yeah, this right here. Let's see. Oh no. Yeah,
for our audio audience, this is going very well.
She could probably put screenshots of the game. It's a defunct game now.
Volunteering you for more work. You hear that?
But even if I put screenshots on YouTube, not everybody watches the podcast on YouTube. Some people just listen.
Everyone head to YouTube.
Close your eyes and imagine this. Okay, you're gonna describe it. Go.
There's
no Just go for it.
I will be trying to buy this card. It's a 1999 Pacific football card.
What does it look like?
A cartoon
What
of
color is it?
Pablo Sanchez cocking back a football with his leg up, ready to throw the football.
Which leg? Left leg? Up
Left
in front?
leg, and he has a huge brimming smile on his
Is
face.
it kind of like a Heisman thing happening, but instead of the arm out like this, he's like this?
Yeah.
Almost like a baseball pitch?
That's what it looks like.
He's a pitcher in backyard baseball, too. These kids all play a bunch of different backyard sports. This is the lore.
Jake,
I play backyard soccer.
Lore.
I might actually buy a computer just so I can play Backyard Football 1999 again.
So fun.
Backyard baseball.
I never played any of the original Pokemon games on Game Boy because I didn't have a Game Boy. So several years ago, someone told me what emulators were. This is like when they were first becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And I got the emulator for Fire Red, and it took me 4 years to beat it because I would just play every now and then scattered. And so I've beaten one Pokemon game on my computer.
You'll have to tell me how to do the emulator thing because I've seen it on YouTube.
Remember.
You don't know how.
I just still have the game on my computer. I do not remember how I downloaded it.
My roommate knows how. I might have to end up actually buying a computer to do that because you can't do it on a laptop. So yeah, for those of you who are interested in, actually no, they're not paying us. I'm not giving no advertisement.
We just did. It's too late. All right. To close out shop today, Derek's not here. So, Brendan, I thought I'd throw you a bone, and we'd have the one topic that Derek is least interested in the whole world, or at least in the whole football world, the draft. You had a lot of time to do a lot of things with your side job that you talk about way too much with the NFL draft. So, Mr. Draft Expert, who are some players that Steelers fans should be watching out for with the number 21 pick this year in the first round?
Yeah, or they could move up, such as one mock draft has them doing. I think Mike Tannenbaum's to get to number 10 to draft Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that's going to happen. But the names that have been floated this entire cycle is Ohio State receiver I really like, Emeka Egbuka. He's Ohio State's all-time leading receiver with names like Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison Jr., all those guys. Kenneth Grant from Michigan. He's a huge defensive tackle that Cam Hayward thinks is a physical freak. Other receivers such as Matthew Golden from Texas. He ran a 4.32 40 at the combine. I think it was the second fastest. Those are the three main guys. There's other receivers. Luther Burden from Missouri, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he decided to go to Missouri instead of going somewhere else.
Oh, that guy. Okay.
Which
okay.
I always find those sorts of guys interesting because they're blazing their own way, but they're also going to a team where they're not going to shine as much.
Yeah.
Trailblazer.
Yeah. So those guys are cool. Those are 4 guys. Jackson Dart is out there. If they take Jackson Dart with the number 21 pick, I might just quit football.
Now with the moves that the Steelers have made at wide receiver, you've got 2 1A, 1B-ish type receivers, number 2, very solid number 2s at the very worst. Do you think it's the best use of their draft resources to pick a receiver in the first round?
I think if they pick a receiver in the first round, it's very telling of what their plans with George Pickens are.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan of George Pickens. I want him to stick around. As much as I'm not a fan of his antics in the way that they upset the team. It's very fun as someone who reports on them and covers them to watch that sort of stuff. Like, you always want something entertaining to write about because it just adds the fun of the job. You don't see many kids in high school football elbow dropping or fighting players down the field. So
Thankfully.
I get my fill of that in the pros. I think I've told you guys this. I think that the NFL draft, unless the Steelers are in the Super Bowl, is more exciting than the Super Bowl. Like, I enjoy watching the first round draft and the drama that comes with it, and sometimes players slide and you're like, where are they going to fall? And then just the order this year, you don't know who is going where. Like, Cam Ward could go number one, maybe he doesn't. And then who goes number one instead? Abdul Carter.
It really does seem like Cam Ward's going number one at this point. Titans need a quarterback. He's there. He's the safest bet for sure. I mean, probably not the highest ceiling, but
I like watching his highlights of him being very lazy. Well, not lazy, but very he's nonchalant. Nonchalant. Yeah. So there's this one highlight of him standing in the pocket, like bouncing on his toes, and he just gets tired of it. He's like, "There's a pocket here. No one's chasing me." He just stands and throws the ball without stepping. I was like, that looks cool. Like, it looks cool when you're so good at football or you're doing so well that you don't have to look like everybody else.
He's also fifth year, sixth year senior playing.
He climbed his way from Incarnate Word. Do you know where Incarnate Word is?
Yeah.
Texas, I think. I'm not sure.
You asked me that and then say you don't know for sure where it is. If that's not the way we're going to end this show today, I don't know what is.
San Antonio.
Derek.
He's always, if anything, he's always consistent.
He is. This is true. Derek, if you're out there somewhere.
He's mowing his grass or something.
Know that we missed you, but we don't.
I'm going to ask him next week at this time.
The kids enjoyed their time.
What were you doing at
show.
4:27 p.m. last Monday? Did you miss us? He's going to say, I did not.
Check out the rest of our...
I did not.
I did not.
Check out the rest of our spring previews on butlereagle.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, smash that follow button wherever you're listening to us. Tell your friends that we're here and we're talking about Butler County sports. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.